episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And today, a show so good, it happens every Friday. Great Scott, it is your true crime Phil, and we are going to discuss the case of Suzanne Morphew and husband Barry Morphew, and I will fill you in on that in just a moment's time. Look at this right out of the gates from Canine Catherine. A happy Aloha Friday, off to Kauai for the weekend. See you on the flip side. We bring that up because you can see the smile starting to develop on Phil's face. Phil, you're leaving us for the Big Island in what, 2 weeks or so?
About a week. A little over a week.
But who's counting? And once he gets there, our show will be at this time normally. The reason it's at this time right now is because of the Karen Reed trial that we are covering on this channel. Of course, Mabel, my beloved pup of almost 17 years, who I had before my children and my wife. Mabel from the UK reminds me of her, so shout out to her. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask Scott Duffy. You have not said a word, and people are counting the syllables that you utter in comparison to Phil. And 4 minutes have passed. You've not said a word. So, Scott Duffy, how was your thing at the University of Wilmington that Phil was a part of? Please tell us. How did it all go? Did Phil ruin it, enhance it, or not affect it at all?
Oh no, Phil enhanced it. Phil brought his game, and I only wish I had more time for him. So, that great reviews for both him and Susan Constantine. So they kind of did our interviewing homicide portion of the conference. So, and detection of deception, which is always good for cops. So 3 days. It went over well. We had some very great speakers who covered the gamut on violent crime topics. So looking forward to next year.
And Phil, is Scott Duffy the big man on campus at University of Wilmington? Was he well respected?
Yeah. He is the director of their criminal justice program there, and he did a fine job. I mean, I'm not because he's sitting here, but no, it was well coordinated. It was the only really mishap was mine because my laptop was having some communication problems with the system that was set up there. But the young man that took care of that, he got it sorted out, and it delayed everything for a while, and so I had to kind of rush through some things and was not able to share with the interview portion in the manner in which I would have preferred. But hopefully that will get resolved perhaps next year. So we'll.
And that was because of an issue with the computer, Phil Waters, primarily.
Yeah, my program for some reason, the PowerPoint, there was a glitch in one of the slides that caused a reoccurring problem. And when we got to that point, he just ran up and fixed it real quick, and we got back to it. But the problem was it delayed the presentation for, 45 minutes, if not longer. And that ran into other programs. And anyway, we got it handled, and it was just not the complete presentation that I would have preferred. But again, Scott tells me that we'll address that next year. So,
well, Phil is ever the perfectionist, but they will work on it. I'm glad to see that Scott Duffy, as he should be, is well respected on campus. My dad had a famous saying that he used to chuckle at. He said that fools chase respect, smart people chase money and Ferraris. He didn't say the Ferrari part, but that was my dad's saying. He's always the contrarian. Look at this from Rosie Woods. I love your emoji, Rosie. But Scott, what is that lamp behind us? Very interesting, very unique, a very interesting shade.
Yeah, it's one of it is not a Tiffany lamp, but it is a Tiffany-like lamp with, I believe,
is that Tiffany as in
dragonfly.
is that Tiffany as in Tiffany the jewelers? I didn't even know that they make lamps.
Yeah, so they've made some, and I've actually put my eyes on a real one, so not in my budget, but they have a beautiful stained glass to it with probably some
Is
rich
that the
jewels.
Walmart series of the Tiffany lamp?
That
Scott?
might be the Target series. I'm not sure where that came from. So that I believe that belonged to my mother-in-law.
It's catching the attention of STS Nation. Look at this, Bonnie Joe Savlin, Kealakuka. Am I saying that right, Phil? It's my favorite place, Kona, Hawaii.
Kealakekua, yeah.
Yeah, look at that.
Kona. That's on the Big Island. Yeah.
There you go. I can tell Phil's getting excited to get back there. By the way, Phil, someone says I don't like to listen to the three of us because we talk too much about Ferrari. So let me ask you, your current Ferrari in Houston, has that ever been picked up? Is that at your place? It's still being worked on?
No, it is still with my Ferrari mechanic. It is currently in the paint mode, and then we will be reassembling the engine and putting it back in and doing the final touches on it. I do not believe I will be in receipt of it before I depart. So,
wow,
that's the bad news.
I feel like it's been with the mechanic and the painter for months, like 7 months.
Yes.
Have they take ownership? Do you know?
Well, he certainly got it. He's certainly invested in it. I can tell you that. So, but he's very blessed to have him. He's a perfectionist, and he's one of those guys that says, "Well, I could give it to you, and it would be great, but it's not quite where I want it to be, and it's nothing you would ever notice, but he wants to make it right according to him." So that's what I told him. I said, treat it like it's yours and do to it what you would do to it. So
wow,
that's what he's doing.
By the way, as you all know, we've got the COE on board. We've got the best mods. We've got Steve Cohen. But Space Coast on the West Coast is a special kind of guy. Handles all the audio and engineering and audio platforms and everything else. And today is his birthday. And we have to wish him a happy birthday. And hopefully we played something a little bit earlier and the COE will pop that in. But special day today, Space Coast. It is his birthday. And look at this from Twirly's mom, Scott Duffy, ! Talk about Deep Cover, the Nameless Man podcast. I'm enjoying listening to all of the ins and outs of your and Terry's epic investigation. What is this, Scott Duffy?
So the I would say renowned, just an excellent journalist, Jake Halpern, who's part of this Deep Cover Pushkin FM series.
Well, look at it here, Scott. I don't want to toot my own horn, but also Deep Cover is a very well done podcast by Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. That's the real deal. Jake Halpern. Note, SDS is better. Just saying. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, I would agree with everything. It's he picked up on a case that we did with Jerry Williams and my ATF partner Terry Mortimer. Over a period of at least 6 or 7 months, Jake had come down to Philadelphia, had reached out to my partner in South Carolina, and did this. Reached out to everybody in the case: defense attorney, prosecutor, the homicide detective that ultimately saw the case through, and as well as the defense attorney. The two guys who we got on the case. The cold case homicide did not want to go on air, but they were part of the trial, as well as members of the victim's family. So Ron Woods, it was quite a case. So
Well,
thank you for that.
I'm gonna check it
Take a
out.
listen.
You sent it to me. I have just been up to my eyeballs and stuff, but I'm gonna get to it. Bossy Texas chick, Scott Duffy, as you take over the speaking ratio, was the conference that you were the boss of, was it streamed? Is it available anywhere? Is it just for people who were there? STS Nation wants in. They want to watch this.
Yeah, it is not anywhere online, and that's as a result of the content. So, it is a law enforcement conference, and we want presenters like Phil and all those that present to speak freely. There is very strong content, both audio as well as pictures, and so they are talking to those who do it every day, and so thereby, out of respect for that, we want them to speak freely, and so thereby no recording.
There you go. Cooler by the Lake. Scott is always soft-spoken, but well worth hearing. Not to be confused with Phil. But look at this. Phil's adoptive daughter, Abby Taha. Doing okay, Phil? Looks like some serious storms in your area. I don't want you getting blown away by a tornado, Phil. Are you okay? You're on air, so I assume it's relatively stable.
Well, thank you, daughter Abby, for asking. Yeah, we're okay. There was a lot of flooding yesterday, some flash flooding yesterday in the area. It took me 3 hours to get from my doctor's appointment to my office, and it's only across the freeway. So it was pretty amazing. That's normally about a 10-minute drive, and 3 hours. And then when I got here to the building, the power was out and the building was closed.
What's going on? Is it rain?
Oh, golly, yeah. It was a torrential downpour. And then I got into the building, though. The guy wouldn't let me in, and I said that I'm going to my office, which I did. And then he was very nice to escort me up 4 flights of stairs because the elevators weren't working, which is fine. Needed my exercise. And then got to the office and was going to take care of some business with my hotspot and my little flashlight on my phone. And none of that worked out. So then, as it turns out, what's called a baffle, it's a panel underneath the engine on the oil pan on my car, had fallen off on the front end, and it was dragging on the ground. So as a result of driving through some high water, so this just turned into a big freaking mess. And I called a friend of mine, that my regular mechanic, and got a wrecker over who's a friend of mine. And as I was walking out of the building, I had packed up everything to leave because no use in staying. And as I'm walking across to the parking garage, the wrecker's sitting in the parking lot, and there are 2 enormous explosions right behind the wrecker driver. And it didn't really startle me. It was just about, I felt them. It was like, I hadn't heard explosions like that since I was in the Marines. So I looked over there, and the wrecker was still sitting there. And I walked into the parking garage and just got past the elevators when 2 more explosions occurred. So transformers blowing up was my escort to the car. Anyway, we finally got it resolved, and I went home. But we were okay. There's still today there is still some thunderstorms going over, and there is still some flash flooding, but it's more northeast of me. But we're okay. Thank you again for asking.
Yeah, well, look at this from Jody Johnston, and then I'm kind of true crimed out, to be honest. Been doing this Karen Reed thing nonstop and working on the book tour. So this is going to be a different kind of Friday because I'm going to make it that way. But we are going to discuss Suzanne and Barry Morphew. in a few minutes, but there's going to be a lot of nonsense in between. So buckle up and start sending me the hate mail now. You guys talk too much about Ferraris. You didn't talk enough about Barry Morphew. You say you're true crime. You're false advertising. Your thumbnail said this. You talked about that. Send all those emails, but please send them to Phil this time. From Jody Johnston. Dale Tiffany, not Tiffany the jewelry store. It's a Tiffany style lamp. I have never heard the name Dale Tiffany till Jody Johnston's comment. I thought it was Tiffany. What's that?
I said thanks for that. So that's a nice piece of tidbit information. So
I thought it was the blue box Tiffany that we're all used to, but what do I know? And to be honest, I just don't care that much. Crafts and True Crime Tracy. Once the show is over, I'm heading over to watch the Miami Grand Prix. It is F1 weekend here, and that's going on. So tons of parties in Miami, which means it's like every other weekend. There's always an excuse to spend a lot of money and party in Miami. I did go to F1 the first year. I think I was telling Phil. I'll never do it again, mainly because it is a 40-mile walk from the parking lot, and tickets – which I was actually gifted for that, were ridiculous. So I don't know. I'm never paying for those tickets. Meanwhile, Jenny Price says, happy birthday to Space Coast. Happy birthday to Space Coast. Happy birthday, Space Coast. We've got a little video that I hope the COE puts in. But let's take Fil and Scott, pretend they are holding hands walking down memory lane. And this is the Suzanne and Barry Morphew story. Suzanne Morphew, a beautiful woman. I'm going to put her up here on the screen. So this is going back to May 10th of 2020. And Scott and Phil, you may not remember this, but this was Mother's Day of that year. And on this day, Barry Morphew, he left to go to a job site 150 miles away in Broomfield, Colorado. But as Keith Morrison would say, or did he? So that's what he says he did. The two daughters, they were out of town on a camping trip. They texted their mother Happy Mother's Day, wishing her Happy Mother's Day, as most mothers do. Daughter Mallory that day then tells dad Barry, hey, we can't reach mom. Barry reaches a neighbor that day by phone and asks a very specific question. He doesn't say, Scott Duffy, have you seen my wife? He doesn't say, have you heard from my wife, Phil? He says something very specific. He says, is Suzanne's mountain bike there? And many people believe that this was setting the scene for a potential alibi. Barry Morphew, again, is 150 miles away. He does not head home immediately. He drops off a shovel and some other tools for his coworkers. He's a landscaper, so that's not that weird, at a hotel where he had booked rooms. And then we've got a last known proof of life photo of Suzanne Morphew from May 9th, the day before this, around 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So last time we ever see her is the day before at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. I'm going to stop it right there. Scott Duffy, Mother's Day, is that a day that could trigger, not saying he did it. I'm not saying he did. Is it a day that could trigger a father and a husband into doing something that he shouldn't be doing, namely a crime? Is that a day that might be a trigger? Also, second question, do you find it odd, as some others do, that he didn't call to ask the neighbor what's going on, where's Susan? He specifically asked about this mountain bike, which was later found strewn across the side of a mountaintop.
Well, we know where his priorities are. First, the mountain bike, and then Suzanne. I'm not so sure I would say it's Mother's Day could be a trigger, especially for as I think we have to be careful here with where we go with this, but I could see it being a trigger for maybe somebody on Mother's Day killing their mother, right?
Yeah.
If there's something going on throughout history there. So I'm not so sure Mother's Day would necessarily be a trigger for a husband, unless there's something that comes out much later about Mother's Day. So it'd be interesting as this gets further pieced together. Was this something planned for Mother's Day because people are out of town? I think that, did you say the daughters are out on a camping trip?
Yes,
Um,
correct.
so things like that, the least witnesses, the better. So but I'm not so sure Mother's Day itself is necessarily a trigger. Brings up some bad memories and whatnot.
Well, so Phil by the way, Twirly's mom says you can learn a lot about how Scott ticks and about his background from this documentary. So I'm definitely, if there's anything I want to know, I want to know how Scott and Phil tick. So I am definitely watching that. By the way, Phil and Scott, I think you get a enjoyment out of our podcast last night in a sick way. There's now a Charlie Adelson, the story we've covered for a very long time. There's reports and corroboration that the Latin Kings have green lit a hit on him. And we had 2 former inmates on last night, and it was both informative and one of the scariest shows I've ever heard, talking about what goes on inside a prison, especially when a hit is out on somebody. We went deep on that, like an hour and 40 minutes. I learned to tell everybody to say that I did a 5-year rip at the ADX to sound cool. That means I spent 5 years at the Supermax prison, even though I didn't really, but I'm telling people that just to sound like I'm tough. So if Phil doesn't find any of this humorous at all, but he might watch it. Exotic feels like I've been there, done that, been in whatever. I put people in there. In South California, my aunt had a 69 chocolate brown Jaguar. I thought she was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I was 10 years old. I would love that car today. Phil, would you drive around in 1969, the year I was born, by the way, a 1969 chocolate brown Jaguar? Think you would?
I would not. It's not my preference, but I have a very good friend who just rebuilt a 70s model, I think, Jaguar, and he would be interested in it for sure.
I would certainly drive that around. It sounds like a cool car. So, Phil, moving along with this story is back in the news, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute, Phil Waters, but when they investigated the work you used to do, imagine yourself in the Morphew home after she went missing. Well, investigators found what is a plastic cap for a syringe used to load a tranquilizer dart in the couple's dryer. This becomes very important because the latest news is that the autopsy report was just released. They found remains of Suzanne Morphew, which we'll get into. And according to the autopsy report, she died, Phil, from homicide by unspecified means in the setting. And I can't say any of these chemicals, but it's BAM. And it's an acronym for basically a deer tranquilizer. So, Phil Waters, what does this mean for this investigation? You've got a husband who's a hunter. You've got an investigative team that finds the cap to a tranquilizer gun. She is not seen since 2020. Her remains are ultimately discovered, and now they have found in her bone marrow the ingredients to a deer tranquilizer. Phil Waters, you've got decades of experience. What does that tell you?
Well, in homicide, we'd call that a clue.
A big clue, a small clue, or a medium clue?
What's that?
Small clue, medium clue, big clue.
I'd say it's a pretty big affirmative link because what I have read about this case is this guy had not only, I mean, when they found the remnants, these caps of this tranquilizer stuff, deer tranquilizer at the scene originally. He apparently readily admitted to the use of those types of tranquilizers.
Yes.
So that is, again, an affirmative link between the first indication that this may be involved, and now here we are 4 years later, and it's been confirmed, at least by the autopsy, that that's what was used. And I guess it's a poisoning by deer tranquilizers is what it sounds like. So, and if we just follow the evidence here on this thing, and if he did in fact commit this act and put the body where it was put, I would imagine that he believed at the time that it was in a place that would never be discovered. So I'm sure that once this revelation came out that the body had been found, I'm sure you could hear his butt slamming shut. I'm sure he was pretty upset about that. And in terms of the Mother's Day thing, I think that was just a timing. I think that was a planned point of convenience. The girls were gone, everybody was gone, and that was when he decided he was going to strike, if in fact he did it. So it's and he was charged and all that.
Yes, he was.
Then the prosecutors backed away from it. They wanted to further the investigation, specific to the fact that they did not have a body. So they've got it now, and I think the autopsy results are very, very revealing. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how this moves forward and at what pace it moves.
When Phil Waters says it's very, very revealing, and I'm Barry Morphew, I am buying my one-way ticket to Vietnam like Donna Adelson immediately. That's what I'm doing. Look at this. Phil cheating on me. You saw Phil on Law and Crime yesterday. A rising tide lifts all ships, as we say here. Happy to see that. What were you talking about on Law and Crime yesterday, Phil Waters? Do you remember?
Well, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure which one that was. I was on there for a couple of things. So there are a couple of topics, and then on Court TV talking about was it her name Karen Reed, the chick up in Massachusetts.
That's what we've been watching nonstop.
That's an interesting case.
That is a very interesting case. And maybe next week we'll actually discuss it. Sonia Watanabe here. STS is the best on YouTube. Thank you so much. All your guests are great. Phil, I almost forgot to tell you, on Thursday night, I think it was, or Wednesday night, the COE was up till 4:30 in the morning. She's like, I can't take it anymore. She completely redid the STS merch store. And now we are going to be able to have slogans and all sorts of things. And it's cool. And there is a hat currently for sale that I'm going to buy you, Phil Waters. And it says something along the lines of don't get your panties in a wad. It says something else as well. And it comes in a perfect color for you, like a bone and a hunter color. COE. Look at this. Lindsay Shea just laughed out loud to my, I'm way behind in the chat here. As you can see, Poland is in the house. Keith Morrison is in the house. Yes, Phil. So your slogan has made it in, and I think we've sold one hat, which is the one I bought for myself. So we're doing well, and I'll be sure to make.
Well, where do you advertise this merch? I mean,
I don't really know. COE, are you even listening to this? Please put the link in. There's actually some fun stuff. There's a thing called the Joel hat. They have different names, and that is a trucker hat with the STS logo. I bought that for myself because I have one.
There's been a number of memes that we've talked about this.
Yeah, and we're gonna get
T-shirts and hats. I mean, there's all sorts of things that are possible here, and And then once it's done, then advertise it here on this. I would advertise it on all your stuff, whatever you're,
I
But that's
wanted.
just me.
I want to have a shirt that says I did a 5-year rip at ADX. I love prison slang, man. It's so cool. And I don't want to glorify it, but it is pretty cool. They talk in a whole language. The shot caller in the car. I want to be a shot caller in the car. That's the guy who runs the little wing of the prison. Ursula is coming to us from Poland. Adelaide, Australia is in the house. It's crazy the people that come in on Fridays. So Scott Duffy, there was previously released a 129-page arrest affidavit. It's such a weird word because people think you say David and then you say, no, I said Dave it. And they say, no, it sounded like you said affidavit. Do you know that the word is affidavit? And you say, yes, I do. And then you go into this whole thing. So anyway, I know what the word is. It's 129 pages. In this affidavit that was released back in 2021, I think, he was asked by investigators about this tranquilizer cap. And here's his direct quote, Scott Duffy. I've shot 2 deer with my trank gun because I had a raised deer. I used to raise deer and I collect horns. And I'll tell you exactly what I did. They're in the yard. I shoot them. They go to sleep. I cut their horns off and I wake them up and they go off with no horns on their head. You're going to find trank darts around my property because I've done that. He added. People say this guy, by the way, played, I think, minor league baseball, was a great athlete in high school. They're from Indiana and was obviously an avid hunter. When you hear those comments in the affidavit, these are a sworn affidavit. So this is his basically not testimony, but his affidavit. What do you make of that? Does it sound like he's trying to cover some potential tracks here? This is interesting. His initials are the same. If this is true, Barry A. Morphew, that the acronym BAM is the ingredients for the tranquilizer. That'd be very ironic. But what do you make of this, Scott Duffy, that he basically set up another, I shouldn't say it this way. He has a reason for why these tranquilizer darts are around, and a very strong one, and at least according to him. How do you read it?
At least initially, it sounds to me like he gave two items to investigators to try to verify some of that information. First and foremost, not being a hunter, but then I would refer to a hunter or to an expert to say, is that possible? Is that done? Is that routine? Is that common? Does it make sense? That's ultimately what we're looking for when we hear stories, alibis, whatnot, if it makes sense. And it should make sense to the general public, right? So 2 things. Okay, how many horns are collected? If this is something that's so common to him, I would like, show me all the horns that you've gotten in this manner. And then second, I'd be like, okay, we're going to have our crime scene scour the property, and you tell us where are all these caps, and so 2 things like that you can kind of balance. And then, of course, you go, if you're not an expert as an investigator, you go to the experts and say, is this something that is routine? And then you kind of balance that with, okay, it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. And then, of course, his where does he purchase said tranquilizers, and then to be able to go and match that to records. So ultimately, there are things that investigators can do to either say, okay, there's nothing to see here in that statement, or there are a few things to see, and this is what we've learned.
By the way, that's another interesting point, because I found out on the previous show we did on this that you need a prescription to get the tranquilizer, I guess, from a vet or something. However, the trank guns, Scott Duffy, you don't need any kind of licensing or permit like you do with a firearm, except in the great states of Texas and Florida, where you can just basically be a 3-year-old and go into a store and buy one, no questions asked. But everywhere else, you pretty much need a license. So, Scott Duffy, you need a prescription. They should be able to track it. But the other interesting thing is he claimed that the actual gun was not in working order, but we don't know when it became not in working order. That's kind of curious too, I think, Scott.
Yeah, so it's the statement that, yes, I have a gun or however many tranquilizer guns, but it's not operational.
Yeah, investigators, I think, seized it, if I'm right. They took it, but it wasn't operational. But when it became non-operational is unclear. It's also unclear if he owned another one.
Yeah, and then if you have a tranquilizer cap that's been mixed up in the dryer, wash, wherever that it was located, I would imagine that obviously indicated there was the use of a tranquilizer at some point within days of whatever your laundry gets put into the mix, and then of course those are additional follow-up questions. Hey, we have this cap, and if the gun is not operational, why is the cap here? Is this something that's you haven't done in years, months, weeks, or days, or something like that? And then of course I would imagine there are things with experts to do to see if the gun was somehow damaged, and how it could have come that the gun was damaged in such a way that's not operational. Again, additional questions that you do follow up with Barry Morphew, and then get additional answers and so forth and so forth.
He's all lawyered up, so I'm at this point I doubt anyone's getting anything out of him. But let's digress for one moment. Phil Waters from LS, aka Chester's mom. Beautiful dog, Chester. My dad has a fully restored Jensen Healy. Honestly, I've never heard of that in my life. Again, I guess I'm just not that worldly. And a Louis Esprit. Gorgeous. Phil, what do you know about these two makes of cars?
Well, you've never heard of Jensen Healy, really?
I don't think so. It's crazy.
And I think what they meant to type in there was Lotus Esprit.
Oh, Lotus Esprit. Oh, sorry.
I've driven a Lotus Esprit. They're pretty cool cars. And the Jensen Healy, those are classic cars right there. Yeah.
What are they? Are they like Aston Martin-esque? Like, what do they look like?
Yeah, the Healys. Yeah, I think they're, if I remember, they're kind of like the old MGs looking type cars. If you know those, the old Triumphs, the old MGs, kind of big slope front ends on them. But yeah, they're pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Maybe I just
especially if you've got one that I think she said he's got it up to speed, right?
Yeah, I think I grew up in a middle class bubble. I grew up in like a normal town in New Jersey, but I guess I just know so little about the world. I don't know. Maybe it's time for me to have a midlife crisis and just take off and travel the world. Scott Duffy, would you come with me? Would your wife let you take 6 months off? We'll just travel the world with backpacks.
Are you going to be stopping at bookstores along that journey?
I'll probably be selling books along. I'll have my backpack filled with books, but I figured we can start in like Mumbai and work our way around the world. Maybe Phil will want to come. Be real men, put on Birkenstocks and slippers and travel the world. I think that would be awesome, actually. Maybe we'll do that. I'll organize that next year. Phil, Scott, and Joel take off. Go globetrot around the world. Jody Arrington, I made it. Phil's like having none of this. I made it. Love Phil and Scott. Notice they don't say Joel. Very sad case. It seems obvious to me that Barry Morphew is highlighted as the perpetrator here. So Phil Waters, this is again your world, your expertise. And, every once in a while, and I mean, this is a complete compliment. People say, why do you have that guy, Phil Waters, on your show? And my response is, what do you think? The guy's investigated over 400 homicides, knows more in his pinky nail than you know in your entire body. Show some respect is what I say to them. But cause of death, the term is cause of death here, Phil, is undetermined. Manner of death, homicide. Let's stop it right there. How problematic or not is that for the state in a potential new prosecution against Barry Morphew, that they know the manner to be homicide, but they don't know how it was done specifically?
Well, they're saying that they don't know the cause of death because the body at that point is just bones, and it's certainly possible that when she was murdered, could have been some sort of strangulation, that kind of thing. There's no evidence that there's any kind of sometimes when you get edged weapons that are used, and sometimes you'll see little nicks on bones and that kind of thing, but evidently they do not have anything like that. No bullet holes in the skull, that kind of thing, or anything that would be indicated that it's anything other than they know for certain that it's a homicide because somebody didn't kill themselves and then go bury themselves in a shallow grave somewhere. So obviously that medical legal ruling is homicide. Now, on the manner of death, in terms of the cause and being undetermined, I'm not surprised at that at all, given the length of time that it's taken to find the body. However, these tranquilizers being found in the bone marrow, that's significant because, as I've said, it brings you back to that initial meeting with him and his explanation of having these deer tranquilizers. Now, in my world, to me, him having said that at the scene, the original scene, to me, that's an admission. That's something you'll note that he's admitting, and he wants to talk about it.
You're saying in the statement in the affidavit is an admission?
Yes. If he at the initial scene was talking about the use of these tranquilizers, and then he goes into some big long explanation, that's one of those things where people just talk too much, and he's answering questions that weren't even asked, is what it sounds like to me. And he's making these admissions about, I use them. He's very specific, right? He puts the deer down because he collects deer antlers. Okay, well, that's fine. I mean, that's just goofy.
Yeah. It's funny.
He's trying to explain over and over again about why he's got these deer tranquilizers. Now, in terms of them, you've got to have, what did you say? You've got to have
you need a prescription for the tranquilizer, but not a license for the gun.
In the real world, he can get those things, I'm sure, anywhere. It doesn't have to have a prescription to go get them. And he may legally need to have that thing, but these are things. All these things that you brought up, these are things that have got to be followed up on. Did he have a prescription for them? If he did not, then you need to find out where he got them from. I mean, there's a whole lot of area of investigation just surrounding the fact that they found these tranquilizer vials or caps or whatever they were that caused this conversation to occur. And then find out, does he have a gun? When did he buy the gun? When did he buy a tranquilizer gun? If he says he'd been doing this for years, when did he purchase that gun?
Well, Phil, what's so interesting is in the affidavit, he talked about being such an avid hunter, but then he says, you're right, like he's very specific. He says, I've shot 2 deer with my tranq gun. I used to raise deer and I collect horns, and I tell you exactly what I did. They're in the yard. I shoot them. They go to sleep. I cut their horns off and I wake them up and they go off. First of all, I know people hunt, but anyone is going to put down a deer to shave off their horn.
That is way too much information.
Yeah. Also, do you think that he's only shot 2? Like, there's no way that
it doesn't make any difference whether he shot 2 or whether he shot 200. The point is that he's bringing this up, and this is what we would call a self-serving statement. He's already trying to explain what may be found if they find her body. Well, here we are 4 years later. They found her body, and what the heck is she got in her system? Dear tranquilizers, well, isn't that amazing? So 1 + 1 still equals 2. I'm just telling you this, and this guy's not, I mean, he's a smart guy, but I think he's kind of outsmarted himself. And Scott and I see this all the time, where they think they're providing a story that is plausible, but is it believable in the long term? And so this stuff he's explaining at the beginning, now it's coming back to haunt him here at the end. Found the body. What is she chock full of? These freaking tranquilizers that he's talking about. He shot 2 deer and got their antlers off. I mean, that's just preposterous, that whole freaking story. And what it does is it puts him right in the big fat middle of it. So again, when did he get the tranquilizer gun? Has he had the gun for several years, or did he buy it 2 weeks before Mother's Day in 2020? So, these are things that I'm hoping, and I'm sure that these investigators, these detectives did. I mean, you would be looking into all of that stuff, because that's crazy. I mean, that's a red flag for me. And when he starts to give you that kind of information, that's just too much information, and it's self-serving. And now here we go. So I find it very interesting. It's really looking at the stuff that was gathered at the front end of this thing, and now seeing a lot of this being affirmed on the back end of it now that they found the body. So yeah, it's very interesting.
And it gets curiouser and curiouser, and I'll tell you why in a minute. But look at this, Jerry. Everyone coming to Phil's defense about the couple of bad apples who, question a man with the experience he has. Phil is brilliant. Coco, Phil is awesome. He's on your show because he's damn smart. That's why, from Wildfire. Look at this. It keeps going. We love Phil. Phil is brilliant. Look at this.
Well, I appreciate that. That really, I'm humbled by that. That appreciates it.
STS has your back. Look at this one. Joel, you don't strike me as someone who would survive in Mumbai or anywhere else. There's some hotels in Mumbai. See how I do. I have a feeling I probably have some stomach issues within a couple of days or so. From Carol Monteverde, what about the pups, the COE, and the kiddos? Going to leave them. Can't go on a man trip and bring the kids, the wife, and the dogs. If Scott and I are going to go to the wilds of Mumbai, we've got to just go. We've got to just do this. By the way, another thing that's crazy about this to think about, and Farrow Gam is 100% right about. I'm about to get into this right now. The poisons were found in her bone marrow. Scott Duffy, one thing to think about as we discuss this, and this is kind of very macabre and depressing, is that she was a cancer patient and she reportedly had a port. And so some people are thinking, in worst case scenario, maybe it was injected that way somehow. But according to the Denver Gazette, Scott Duffy, the results came from femur bone marrow. This part is a little graphic. So when they recovered her remains, and it's an absolute miracle and kind of a fluke, law enforcement had to get a tip because her remains, Scott, were found in a place called Sawatch County, which is literally tumbleweed. And that's pretty much it. There's nothing there in the middle of nowhere. They were looking for someone else and somehow came across her remains. But people believe that there was a tip into law enforcement. So when they recovered her remains, Scott, the medical examiner received Suzanne's remains in quote-unquote bags containing bones and clothing that included a sweatshirt that read Crested Butte, a Nike tank top, and Yeti shorts. In addition, and this is where it gets a little weird, Scott, they recovered a ski mask and a weathered bullet noted as evidence in the report. This is really weird. What does your investigative antennae tell you when you hear this? bones, Nike tank top, sweatshirt, Yeti shorts, ski mask, and weathered bullet. I am no investigator, but the minute I see ski mask and weathered bullet, I'm thinking someone's trying to set this up to look like something it wasn't. What do you see, Scott?
Yeah, or somebody was sloppy. So it'd be interesting to see what they've gotten off at the very least the ski mask. And I know it's probably been quite some time, but in today's day and age, if there's something there, some really good DNA experts can pull that off. So yeah, it'd be, the weathered bullet, and then of course if there's nothing in, as Phil talked about earlier with nicks and so forth on any type of bone or in the skull, the having a bullet there is, especially if it's in such a rural area that nothing else other than God's given environment should be there, and then all of a sudden the remains of Suzanne and a whole bunch of other items that it's not something that's not connected, and so it would be interesting to see the two items, more so the clothing, being if that is the clothing that they're able to attribute to her, but then the ski mask and this bullet, to see what further could be developed from those. So yeah, it's not good for whoever did it, especially for to have the body and some foreign items, being the bullet and the ski mask.
Dom's mom gifting one Surviving the Survivor membership. Thank you so much. That is, of course, Suzanne Morphew. Sage Lake here. Maybe they'll arrest him. Mother's Day is coming right up. Phil, the question that everyone is asking, and I'm going to pose it to you, and I'm going to put you on the spot. Is this guy, in your opinion, going to be arrested again? And will it be soon?
Well, the short answer is yes. I think so, only because of where the evidence is leading. And again, he was charged before and arrested. And now we have powerful evidence that their initial arrest of him was the correct thing to do. Because you got to look at this thing, you got to kind of take the maxi look here, and look, he who else would want her dead? Who else would want Suzanne Morphew dead?
And by the way, another important point that was made the other night, this was May 2020. This is the absolute panic of the pandemic. No one was going out. Even in Denver, they were saying, don't go outdoors. So, I mean, the chances of just a randomer at that point, too, I think are the whole world was freaked out, including criminals at that point. So there was sort of a window of opportunity. Phil, am I crazy with that one or no? I mean, the world was on lockdown at that point.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, this was all a matter of timing for him. She had a new boyfriend. He had girlfriends. At least that's what I've read.
Yeah.
She was leaving him. And this guy, look, I mean, he's one of these big buff, good looking guys, narcissist. She's beautiful. I mean, you've got the clash of, egos here, and he's not going to have it. And she's saying some things to him that are, at least what I've read, or seem to me pretty provocative. I mean, it's when you get these moments where you loved somebody with such intensity, and now you're hating each other with equal intensity, if not more. So I think this was a time, because you got to figure too, if he did it, transporting the body to where it was found, I mean, how many people would have been around at that point in time? So, I mean, this is good timing for a lot of things for something like this. You know, take care of business wherever you need to take care of. You don't have any, I don't think there was any other than these tranquilizer deals. There wasn't any physical evidence of a scene at the house. And then her bicycle was found in some ditch somewhere and, you know, off the side of a hill or something, such thing. So, you know, this is all, and there's not a lot of people moving around. I don't know what the density of the population is in that area. I wouldn't think it's very much anyway.
Yeah, it's rural.
Now you've got this opportunity here where, you know, people, that was when I guess it was starting to get ratcheted up about, you know, stay at home. You know, everybody was lying about all the Wuhan stuff.
Yeah.
And, well, you know, stay at home, don't go around, don't wear a mask, you know, hold your finger the right way and all that crap. And so he took advantage of it. I just, you know, my curiosity is, was he wearing a mask when he went to the, you know, but, you know.
People are going to say, hey, Joel, why didn't you push back on Phil on the Wu? I can't control a grown man. He's got his opinions.
You know, and you know what? And if they do, that's on my list of things I care nothing about. So there you go.
I think we really should have gone to Wuhan right at the outbreak. I thought that would have been interesting. We could have been on the front lines of this pandemic, reporting it back. STS, our numbers would have been much higher. Look at Jerry Michaels. Scott is exceptional. At the risk right now of the speaking ratio going completely out of balance in Phil's favor. Phil, I got to ask you, what do you make with all your experience about the ski mask and the weathered bullet as being found as part of these remains? That seems really weird. That's an odd assembly of things.
Well, I'm kind of, I guess, in that same frame of mind that Scott is. I mean, the ski mask may have been
COVID thing.
Cold. It may have been cold. It may have been his Wuhan mask, and it may have been, he may have been wearing it so that if somebody did see him, they wouldn't they wouldn't see his face. But leaving it there, I'd be curious to know where it was in relation to the remains. Was it something that looked like it had been discarded, or it may have been, like Scott said, it may have been something that was left there in error. Now the bullet, that's a little weird.
It's not a spent bullet, as far as I know. It's like a full bullet, which is weird, you know.
Like a round, like a
round,
like a cartridge, an unfired bullet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little strange. What kind of an area it is, or what kind of a bullet it is, would be something I'd be curious to know. Is it a pistol round, or does it belong to a rifle? You know, that kind of thing. So, and who knows? I mean, maybe he brought a pistol with him, and he was going to do something with the pistol. I mean, who knows? And he somehow dropped a cartridge there on the ground. But again, I'd want to know where that was in relation to the remains. Where was the ski mask, and where was the bullet found, the cartridge found? So, yeah, that does throw up a lot of questions. And then, of course, based on the caliber or the type of cartridge that it is, what's the next question you want to ask? Hey, guy, what kind of weapons do you have in the house?
Yeah.
And then if that round showed to have been ejected for whatever reason, if you've got a marking on the back part of the cartridge where the ejection rod would hit it, compare it to any similar type of weapon that's in the house. So, I mean, there's a way there, and of course they're going to try to get the DNA off the mask, of course. And if that DNA comes back to him, he's toast. I mean, he's really, he's done.
You just went inside the mind of a homicide detective who's investigated over 400 cases. So be careful where you tread. DG is convinced that this guy, Barry Morphew, is innocent. The new boyfriend she was cheating with killed her, not him. That's my opinion. That guy has an alibi, as far as I know. And he was open about having this affair, as she, I think, may have been, but it all came out after the fact. I think after the fact, he was open about it. They checked his alibi, and I believe he's all alibied out. Scott Duffy, we got to ask you a few questions now to get the ratio back, and I don't want you to fall asleep. From L. Rose, do you think law enforcement now is watching every move Barry makes? Apparently, word on the street, he's back in Indiana. Are your people, the FBI or others, as they did with Donna Adelson, he could be a flight risk, this guy, do they have eyes on him, as you guys like to say?
I would tend to believe there's some sense of just being able to have an idea where he's at. It may even be possible that they went and had a conversation with him or his attorney to say, hey, just we're looking pretty close, so just don't let him go too far or something like that. I mean, at this point, he is free to travel about, and if he feels that law enforcement is closing in on him once again, then be as it may, we'll see what he does. But no, we're 4 years into it. He has been arrested. He has been released and charges dropped, and so I would expect he's expecting it again at some point.
But I mean, do they have like some sort of flag on his passport if he tries to go to Mumbai right now or Vietnam?
It's always possible. I know when I was looking at people, but not ready to put the cuffs on and so forth. I would have some flags out there. You need warrants for certain things, but I would put some what we call soft notes, where if all of a sudden he got on a plane and he's heading one way, I would know about it. I would be triggered. So it's very possible that some of those things have been put in place through other law enforcement agencies and the like, but ultimately he is free to travel about and go wherever he wants.
Margaret Cowser, Fil and Scott, you guys are awesome. You notice, once again, my name is not mentioned. Then Pharaoh Gamma here. There was a 22 nickel plated found near the remains, Scott Duffy. That sounds like police lingo, right? I wish I could be cool and be like, yeah, it's a 22 nickel plate. So what is it? Does that tell you anything, Scott?
So is that the round they're talking about?
Yeah, you're asking.
I don't know. Nickel plated. That sounds like a pistol.
Yeah. What about nickel plated? This would be funny. We're at dinner right now. I have no idea what anyone's talking about. Why does nickel plated sound like a pistol, Phil?
Because he's talking about the finish on a gun.
Oh.
So you've either got blue steel, nickel plated. Some of them get Parkerized. He's describing, that sounds like a pistol description to me rather than just a round.
Yeah.
Let me do my Keith Morrison. But was it nickel plated? So the quote from this guy who's an attorney, Scott Duffy, he says these types of drugs, this is a legal expert in Colorado. He says these types of drugs, I would think, are a little bit more difficult to get. They are sedatives. So the question is, how easy are these things to get? As far as I know, I don't think they have anything pointing toward one individual at this point. This is your world right here, Scott Duffy. It's going to entirely depend on what the Colorado Bureau of Investigation has in their file that they have not shared with the public. That is standard practice. You don't share everything. The real question is, what do they have? For all we know, they have a smoking gun. To that point, Scott Duffy, we don't know what we don't know, but is it possible? Is it possible that they do have something now that they can connect this all to, that they can dot the I's and cross the T's with, and get this guy now?
Sure, it's always possible. It's and I think law enforcement is also, and when I say law enforcement, I mean the whole prosecution with it. The fact that they pulled the trigger and then pulled back, and then I know there were some other issues connected and not connected to their personal lives and their professional lives, that they may be very cautious to put cuffs on him a second time until they feel very comfortable, and that being they have their smoking gun. They obviously had enough to execute an arrest warrant, and they had probable cause. So at that point, they felt comfortable at that time to move forward, because prosecution is not going to go forward.
Am I hearing a cat right now,
Yeah,
Scott?
you do hear a cat.
Is that your cat? Is
Yeah.
Phil? Oh, yeah. What's your cat? Did I know you have
Pickles.
a cat? What's your cat?
Yeah.
Pickles?
Pickles. Yep, she's in the background.
What is a cat?
Not
What
you.
is it meowing for right now? I'm not. I don't know cars and I don't know cats. What's that cat meowing for? What does it want right now?
Attention.
Yeah, definitely attention. She'll stop immediately if she came up here, but she's either hungry, she's a frequent eater, or she wants to go downstairs. Usually I keep my basement door shut.
Yeah. Phil Waters, by the way, this reminds me, as you well know, Fred Morris Roosevelt Brown is the newest addition to our family. The Morris Roosevelt is from Mabel Rose, my beloved puggle of 17 years. I've got an issue. I'm absolutely convinced, by the way, that Mabel was reincarnated as Fred. Let's see the cat, Scott. But I'm convinced that Mabel was reincarnated as Fred Brown. Fred Brown, like Mabel Rose, will dive over anything to get a grain of food. It could be anything. He will sprint and get to that piece of food. The problem now, Phil Waters, is that he's whining to me every time I eat something. He's complaining. And how do I shut this down early on, Phil? Do you have any dog advice? He will not stop.
He's whining to you?
Nonstop. This thing lives for food. Fred's whole name is Frederick Morris Roosevelt Brown. He will not shut up when I'm eating. He's like,
well, so let me ask you this question. So when was the first time you gave him some food from the table?
Probably day one, because I'm a
well,
sucker.
Then you're scred.
Yeah, I'm a sucker. What would you have done?
That's all self-inflicted, Joel. You'll just have to, you'll just have to go in and,
Phil, what would you
and curl up in a fetal position and whine about it, because that's
WWFD. What would Phil do? What would you have done? You just does Nugget ever get table food or no?
Oh yeah.
Oh, but he doesn't whine. I can't look at those eyes and not give him food, but then I wanted to shut up.
Well, good luck with that.
Can I stop now? He's only 5 months old. What if I just stop feeding him table food?
Well, then you'll be looking at him and he'll have those big puppy eyes.
Yeah.
And he'll start looking like he is really hurting, and you will give in anyway. So
yeah, his eyes go sideways, they bulge out.
Yeah. Then he's got kind of those,
Look at this guy. Fred only whines with Joel. The whining is mutual. I guess it's true. We whine to each other. On the sweet side, he actually sleeps on my head. So he likes me. Yeah. So
because he's waiting for you to wake up, so you will feed him again.
Yeah, I don't know how to stop this. I cannot look at his wobbly eye. His eyes go left and right, and I can't look at him and not give him food. It's impossible. So I guess I'm now going to deal with this until one of us is no longer around. Look at this. Look at this. Black Widow, the Republic of Ireland. My dog will only eat when she's told to, even if it's on her nose. That's incredible. That's incredible. On the flip side, I could probably train Fred to become a detective because he'll do anything for food. So look at this. Ned Smith says, of course, Ned Smith's got to bring me way down. Table scraps are not healthy for dogs. I do try to give them just like protein, and every once in a while I'll give them a scoop of Haagen-Dazs, but no, mostly just protein. All right, back to the story here. So I don't even know who we were talking to, but Phil, you mentioned this. This was a disaster for the state. Many people, for different reasons, felt that the state handled this case all wrong. So they arraigned him, but then they ultimately dropped charges just days before he was going to go to trial. Will this does that impact? And by the way, this looks like it's going to a different jurisdiction now because of where the remains were found. But Phil, in your opinion, will this influence another potential prosecution against him?
Well, I mean, what are you driving at? Will influence another prosecution?
Well, just I guess it was a very bad optics for the 11th Judicial Circuit there in Colorado. They were the ones that kind of botched the charges. And so now they're saying the 12th Judicial District is a new potential prosecutor in this case.
Because that's where the body was found, right?
Correct.
Well, that's very similar here in Texas. I had a case where a similar deal. Woman actually gets kidnapped, goes missing, and the kidnapping occurred in an adjoining county. Her body was recovered here in Houston. So jurisdiction can go in either direction. They may be deciding to let the 12th district take care of it just to remove any taint from what the 11th district did prior to. So I don't think that's a bad move. I think that kind of gets a fresh set of eyes looking at this thing, and that's not a bad thing. So we will see, based on their investigation there where the body was recovered, which is going to track back to where she left the house. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think that's a good thing in that particular case, given the charging him, arresting him, and then right before the trial saying, well, we changed our mind. We would prefer to have the body. So I think gives a whole new perspective on it if he gets arrested and if he gets prosecuted.
By the way, for those wondering, there's a shout out to Wynwood. It's a section of town in Miami, but it's also a dog food store where they make real food for dogs that I'm sure is probably edible for humans. Never tried it, but that is what I feed both Fred and Ethel. There's another issue with Fred and Ethel. Scott Duffy, maybe you can help me with this one. There are two bowls, and I'm not going to feed one in one area of the house and one in the other area of the house. So what I did was I would put Ethel's food with some of the Wynwood food in one bowl with Ethel's kibble. And then I put Fred Morris Roosevelt's brown food in the other bowl with his kibble, which is puppy food. And wouldn't you know it, they immediately switched bowls. And so for days, Fred was eating Ethel's kibble, Ethel was eating Fred's kibble, and now I've just given up. I've actually run out of the boxer kibble. So now both Fred and Ethel are eating the Wynwood food with puppy kibble, which is probably why Ethel's putting on tons of weight all of a sudden. Although she's built like a horse. She's pretty svelte. Anything I can do about mixing the kibbles, I'm just waiting for Fred to get to a year where they can just eat the same food anyway. But Scott, any dog advice prior to the year mark?
Well, being that I am a vet,
This is awesome. Yeah.
I have no advice. I think I've always had pretty much one dog, and so thereby she'll eat everything. Whether if I feed the cat separate, she'll clean house. So it's hence 2 different rooms, 2 different locations,
So
2 different times.
the cat will eat more than the dog. Is that what you're telling me?
No, but if I leave her food out, she'll eat what she wants and then leave, come back, so forth.
Mm.
But I can't not Pearl. That
So you
she'll eat it.
so Pearl and I see what you're saying. So Pearl and these pugs, man, they do love food. By the way, Abby says that Millard Fillmore, not to be confused with Phil Waters, that he eats kibble. And this is true. Pugs are is that a pug in her photo? I think it is. I can't see her, a bulldog, but pugs are just, I guess, food obsessed. I don't know. They're just absolutely happy 8 months to Miranda Lee here. So let me read this statement, and then we're going to get off of Barry Morphew. But here's a statement. So Phil Waters, she has a formidable attorney named Iris Aton that everyone knows of in Colorado. She is supposed to be a pit bull, as they say. For the past 4, this statement, by the way, went on for 5 paragraphs, which I'm going to ask you about as well. But for the past 4 years, the Morphews have agonized over Suzanne's disappearance. This included not only the pain of the loss of their wife and mother, but also the false accusations and prosecution of Barry Morphew. The Morphews have prayed the authorities would remove their blinders and not only find Suzanne, but find the suspect responsible for her disappearance and murder. However, the Morphews are left with more questions. Phil loves defense attorneys. The Morphews are left with more questions than answers and a lack of justice for Suzanne, the family, and the community. And before you go off on this, in the next paragraph, they talk about where Barry was that day. He went to work, that she had a cup of coffee, that she was a regular coffee drinker, that unknown male DNA was found. I mean, this statement goes on that lead investigators had issues, that the family remains, and it goes on for a full page, which is kind of crazy because this is all going to be, it is insulting to Suzanne's memory for sure. But this is also something that can be used in the court of law. But Phil, the floor is yours. Barry was talking too much. Are these attorneys talking too much?
Well, the attorneys always talk too much. So that's just a word salad that she's going to put out there because that's what he's paying her to do. Or these 2 attorneys. And that's just in keeping with what they need to do. And if they've got questions about the way the first set of detectives handled it, or the first DAs, the prosecutors handled it, then that's all the more reason to allow the second set to take that up. And like I said, fresh pair of eyes, look at it and see where this new evidence leads them. So this business about trying these high profile cases in the public arena to try to garner some sort of sympathy, I mean, it's pretty typical. I don't have any issue of what they're saying. It's typical. I look at these types of cases all day long, and the lawyers are doing what they're paid to do. So there you go.
So this is the last thing, and then I got to get off of this. I just can't talk about it anymore. By the way, Scott Duffy, I wrote a book about my beloved mother. The book tour is starting on Monday. Went in to visit my beloved mother the other night. We had to sign a couple of books, and she just starts screaming at me. This is typical. It's in the book. Telling me that she can't take a book tour. She's too old. You met her. She's full of energy. She hasn't changed. She doesn't know how she's going to pack. Should I just call off the entire book tour, Scott, at this point, and just tell Carm to just hang out at the condo? Do you have any life advice for me?
With the exception of Philly. So leave Philly on.
Okay.
And,
I'm thinking of just pulling the plug on the whole thing. She look at this. This is the best comment of the night, right here from Abby. Wait, Joel wrote a book. By the way, I don't want to toot my own horn, but now I might take a moment. I got a call from the publisher today who says that sales are up. So I've got to thank STS Nation. And he said that this hasn't happened to him, and I'm going to jinx myself right now, but within the publishing world, people are talking about this book. So I'm excited about that. I don't know what the hell that means. What is your plan for doing the show? Well, we don't plan anything at STS. I told the COE, she thought the book tour was like 6 months away. I was like, this is my last week here. We're going to try to do some, we're going to try, this is the book tour, by the way, right here in South Florida on Monday. And we're going all day. We got a bunch of stuff. And by the way, Monday, we're ending off with a Holocaust Remembrance Day show, which will be kind of heavy with Carm. I did that on purpose to just torture her for yelling at me. So she will be the main character on Monday. We're not doing, I guess it's one of the worst crimes committed against humanity. So in a way, it's true crime, but it's not typical true crime. But yeah, Monday is Holocaust Remembrance Day. So you can still RSVP. It is in Miami Beach. May 16th, Boston, Dr. Ann Burgess will be the guest of honor. May 19th, New York City, CBS's Jim Axelrod. He's a friend from New Jersey, from my hometown, and he hosts 48 Hours on CBS. He's a stand-up guy. He's going to moderate a conversation. May 21st, we're actually doing something now at the Holocaust Museum as well. 2 things in one day in Toronto, and Ruth Markel is going to be there. And Phil Markel reached out, and I think he's going to be there. So I'm excited for that. May 23rd, Philadelphia. Look who's the guest of honor, Scott Duffy. Scott Duffy will be the guest of honor. I'm going to go to Houston with Phil at some point in the fall. June 6th is Tallahassee with Tim Jansen. June 23rd is Tampa. I'm going to find someone cool in Tampa to come with us. So there's that. I wanted to finish up one thing here with this. Scott Duffy, you guys say there's never coincidences in your line of work. And the prosecution also pointed out that investigators found scratches on Barry Morphew's arm right after this. In addition to that, there was a dark vertical crack along the door frame of the couple's master bedroom. Investigators showed Barry Morphew that crack, and his quote was, "I have no idea what that's from." Let me hold it right there. Coincidences. All these things that you just heard, crack in the door, scratches on the arm. Now he has a tranquilizer cap. There's tranquilizers in her system. Does this smell funny to you, Scott Duffy, from all your experience?
Well, it's good in the sense that everything that law enforcement has come across, especially if the scratches are fresh, give us an explanation, and everything is ultimately to get an individual to keep talking. Lies are good, stories are good, and hopefully they're detailed enough that law enforcement can either validate them, verify them, or say, wow, they just don't make sense, or we've proven them to be untrue, right? And so and then are there other things, for example, things we don't know, whether it be some sort of arguments that were taking place leading up to that an outsider can give testimony to, and so forth. I mean, you have a homicide, you have a violent encounter, so thereby the husband, it's no secret that the spouse is the first person in that type of situation that's going to be looked at. And so then you balance that with what is the husband talking about? I mean, the husband should be doing everything in his power to say, look at everything I've done and I'm doing. And I'm here open arms, giving you everything to prove that I am not your suspect, and then get on to do the Lord's work and find the killer, right? So the attorneys, that's what they should be doing. Hey, my client is innocent, and so thereby we will make him available to you to question him so we can get you to move elsewhere to somebody else. And if everything keeps coming back to the husband because of stupid statements or just behaviors that are not conducive to an innocent individual, then what is law enforcement left with but then to stay on the husband? So with everything in congregate, it I mean, there are coincidences, but explain them, and if they're not explainable, then it's something that keeps law enforcement zeroed in on their suspect.
Scott Duffy, does your wife ever watch this, by the way? I'm curious. I know Phil's wife watches.
Yeah, she does. And then when she travels, she'll capture it, listen to it, the audio portion of it in a car.
By the way, listen to us on audio platforms, Spotify, Apple, all those. Miranda Lee, I am coming to Chicago with Carm. She doesn't know that yet. I have to ease into it. July 16th, we're going to be there. I'm excited. Look at NJ Cool Chick. Anyone going to you don't need to go with someone. Yeah, I know a few people going, and I better see you there. But you got to get tickets because that one, Jim Axelrod is moderating. He's a big name. By the way, Phil, you'll appreciate this, I think. On Monday, CBS News locally already came out, but it's going to air nationally. They did a story. But are you familiar with the Christian network EWTN? It's a huge global Christian network. Well, they're interviewing Carm for their primetime news, and believe it or not, they've got way more viewers around the world than any of these networks in the United States. But are you familiar with it, Phil Waters? I'm curious.
I am not.
There you go. Well, this is a higher authority, EWTN, massive Christian news station, very interested in Carmela's story. And by the way, right now, believe it or not, this afternoon, Carmela was interviewed by a woman named I got to look it up, but she is an Indianapolis talk show radio, and she's going to air it. She just interviewed Carm. I can't think. I want to say KTIC, something like that. Maybe. I don't know. I have to look it up. But anyway, she'll be on talk radio in Indianapolis. And here's Kim DeLorme gifting 5 memberships. Before we get into the wacky true crime stories and one really sad one, let's play this for a moment in honor of one of our beloved STS Nation, not only members, but the man who makes it all happen. There should be music here, COE. There should be music here too, COE. Cute dogs.
Happy birthday!
Hey, Space Coast from the West Coast. Wishing you a very happy birthday. To my pin wigman, and much, much more. Our STS audio expert, videographer, IT guru, the best gamer, of course, and musician.
Hey, Space Coast, this is Super Planner Girl and Luna and Watson. Yes, there are treats involved in making this video, but we just wanted to wish you a very happy birthday. We hope that you have a great day celebrating, and thank you so much for everything you do for STS.
Happy birthday!
Space Coast, happy birthday. It's Abigail, or Abby Crossing, here in Nashville, Tennessee, wishing you the happiest birthday. Thanks for all you do to help our great community at STS Nation run oh so smoothly. It's always the behind the scenes folks who tend to get the least amount of credit, but oftentimes deserve the most, right? Have the best day. Cheers.
Hey, Space Coast, it's me, Beach Bum. Happy birthday.
Hi, Spacey. Happy birthday. From me and all of the squirrels who are around here somewhere, we hope you have just the best day. And even though time is a human construct, which doesn't apply to you as a space alien. I hope this year brings you all of the chances to laugh, the chances to learn, and the chances to love.
Happy birthday, Space Coast. I hope you have an amazing day. I hope all your dreams come true. And we appreciate everything you do at STS.
Aloha, Spacey. Just wanted to let you know how much we love and appreciate you. Thanks for all the hard work. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, sir. This is Dom's Mom 725, your fellow West Coaster. I hope you have an awesome day today, and I hope you have a good weekend celebrating, whether you're whipping it up with friends or sleeping in or whatever floats your boat. I hope you enjoy it, and just know how much you're appreciated, and we love you and appreciate everything you do.
Hey, Space Coast. Have a happy birthday and many, many more.
Happy birthday to you, our favorite STS tech boo. We appreciate your many talents, and most of all, we love you. Taylor Burton here, sporting my deadhead hair in honor of you, Spacey. Thanks for keeping it fun and smooth.
Hey, Space Coast, happy birthday, and thanks for all you do for us. I hope you celebrate well, doing exactly what you want.
Hey, Space Coast, wishing you the happiest of birthdays. Thank you for all you do for the channel and for all of us. Happy birthday!
Hi, Spacey. Happy birthday. I just wanted you to know how appreciated you are, and I hope you have a great day. From Nancy.
Hi, Spacey. I hope you have an amazing birthday, and I really appreciate everything that you do for the STS subscribers.
Happy birthday, Space Coast, and congratulations to another successful orbit around the sun.
Labra Hunagwit, Space Coast. Happy birthday to you, Space Coast. Hope you have a great day, Pet Lamb, from your friend, Black Widow.
Happy birthday, Jeff, from Tennis Girl 101. Thank you for everything you do, keeping STS going. Hope you have a good one.
Happy birthday, Space Coast. It's Karen, NC Horse Lover. Hope you're having a great day. Thank you for all you do for us. Cheers.
Happy birthday, Space Coast. This is Rosie Woods, Maggie, and Bailey. And we're here to say thanks so much for making us laugh and helping us to hear and trying to help Joel when the audio goes out.
Misbehaving here from the UK. I understand Friday's a really special day, so I'd like to wish you a really, really happy birthday and thank you for all your hard work.
Happy birthday, Space Coast. Hope you have a wonderful
That's
day
his mother.
tomorrow. Cannot wait to celebrate you. Love you.
Hi, Sandy.
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday! We love you!
Hey, Space Coast, happy birthday!
Happy birthday to you, you 102. You look like a monkey. You belong in the zoo. Happy birthday to you! You awesome. You both twins. You are amazing. Just slay all day.
There it is. Happy birthday to Space Coast. As I said earlier, I will say it again. By the way, Indianapolis is WBIC, and it is Terry Stacy. So there you go. Best guess, better community. Scott Duffy, what did you think of that montage that the COE put together over the last couple of days? As she put together the bookstore.
That was fantastic.
Amazing, right?
Beautiful job. Absolutely. It was A1 job. And happy, happy, happy birthday, Space Coast.
And Phil, did that warm your heart knowing that we've got such a beautiful community here? They're taking the time from around the world to wish Space Coast a happy birthday. Did it warm your heart?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. Happy birthday to Space Coast. And yeah, that was great. Love seeing that expression of love on his birthday. That's awesome.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I hate to do this, but we're going to pivot to something depressing here that I want Phil and Scott to comment on. I'm going to defer to Phil first because he is older. That's simply the only reason. I have respect for the elders. Authorities have now identified the 4 law enforcement officers killed in a shooting. Happened on Monday, happened in Charlotte, North Carolina. These were some members of the U.S. Marshals Fugitive Task Force. They were responding to a domestic incident. Among them, Deputy U.S. Marshal Thomas M. Weeks, 48. He was a 13-year veteran of the Marshal Service. And Joshua Iyer, Samuel Sam Peloche, and William Elliott. This story broke my heart, Bill Waters. These guys were basically ambushed. Someone else opened up fire from inside the house when they arrived on scene. I am as pro law enforcement as you can get. That whole nonsense about defunding the police drove me crazy. These guys lost their lives in the line of duty. 8 were injured, 4 murdered that day. Anything you'd like to say?
Well, of course, that's heartbreaking. And anytime I see something like that occur, it's any line of duty death, but especially this as catastrophic as this one was. It's I'm bowed but not broken, and I can't. I've had friends that have lost their lives in the line of duty, and I just I know what their families are going through and what those departments are going through. And if you haven't been through it, it's not something I can really explain to you. It's that I've read further about that whole situation, and that guy was set up for this type of an event. He was on high ground, and the other person with him that was also shooting, and so they were prepared, and it's just it's devastating to that area and that law enforcement community, and it ripples. That ripple effect will just go across the country, across the world for that matter. So, I don't know what I can say about that to express what a tragedy, what a tremendous loss that is.
Scott Duffy, when you used to go out on patrol as a beat officer or in dangerous situations with the FBI, would your wife say, "Honey, be careful"? Was she worried about you? These guys, I'm sure, are married with many children between them. It's just a horror. I mean, I hate to do this right after the birthday celebration, but I forgot that it was already it was this past week. I don't know when this happens, and this was a bad one. I covered the one in Dallas. Phil will remember that, where multiple police officers were. I was at Fox News Channel for that, and I covered that. This was pretty bad. Scott, what was your reaction to it?
Yeah, no, it's when it first came out, and then you hear, very generally officers shot. Immediately, whenever I see that an officer is in danger, immediate prayers, because knowing it was an unfolding situation, hoping that those who were shot, because we didn't know that they would recover fully, and then of course to realize the ultimate with regards to their deaths, and the fact that it was 4 who had died, and of course others who were shot. It is amazing to have heard in such regard, because the U.S. Marshal Service are an expert fugitive apprehension team, and we worked well with them side by side in Delaware as an FBI fugitive task force. So I know the fugitive game is very dangerous, and ultimately we tried to get them with the element of surprise. So, as Phil said, it seemed like they were planning and well positioned, and to hear that, ultimately the worst of the worst, when you shoot at those who put their lives on the line to defend and protect, and then you shoot them and you go after them. That is the worst of the worst, that you are attacking not only the individuals that were taken, But every aspect of society comes into question, our safety, etc. It is just absolutely tragic, and thoughts and prayers are with their families. It's just unimaginable.
I promise we're going to end on a sweet story, but it's going to take a little bit to get there in the final minutes here. Phil, what can be done to protect officers more? I mean, these are, as Scott just said, dangerous situations when you're apprehending fugitives or you're dealing with domestic violence situations. Is there anything else that can be done? They were basically just gunned down in cold blood here.
Well, look, I mean, these things happen. And to say, is there anything that could be done? Look, I've worked with the similar groups with the Marshal Service. They were the Gulf Coast Violent Offenders Task Force. They were made up of multiple agencies, just like this one in North Carolina. And those guys are the experts, as Scott's already mentioned. They're the experts in apprehending these guys. And I guarantee you, they don't just go into these things without a plan. And the one thing you cannot plan for is an ambush. And that's you can maybe think about a contingency, but they're preparing. They know who they're going after. They know what their capabilities are. And, you know, it's just a matter of timing on when you go and you serve those warrants and something like this happens. And so it's, you gotta get there. You gotta get out of the cars. And something like this, it just appears that the minute that happened, this was already a planned event. And whether or not he knew it was occurring, was going to occur, I mean, who knows? But this guy had a plan that if it were to occur, I mean, he may have been on, who knows? I mean, what was inside? I'd be curious to know if he had any cameras on the house. I'd be curious to know if he had any kind of surveillance stuff going on that would tip him off as to, I got the popo rolling in here and they're not coming in here to have a party. So, not to welcome me, at the door. So that kind of thing. So, yeah, I mean, they prepare as best as all their training. They put together these plans to execute these warrants. And sometimes something like this occurs. The factor that you cannot plan for occurs. And that's what's happened here. And so I just, my prayers have been with these families and the recovery of the officers that are still in the hospital and are injured and wounded. So it's just again, I don't know how else to describe it. Just an incredible tragedy, and people need to acknowledge that the great risks that are taken by those that walk the thin blue line.
That is as well said as it can be said. This is why I teach my kids to say hello to police officers and firefighters and to thank them, and to EMT. Susan says, I think this is the one whose father was a sheriff for 57 years. I was a cop's daughter, wife, sister, and daughter-in-law, worried every day. And these people are not making the most money in the world, except for Phil Waters, who has 73 Ferraris. But they're doing what they love to do, and they are protecting us. And next time you see a firefighter, a police officer, EMT, instead of saying something derogatory, say, hey, thanks for protecting me, because they are the first people you're going to call anytime something happens. I have no doubt about that. They're going to be the first people that you call anytime anything happens. Oh, look at this. Need some STS merch to rep while, I guess, a crime con or somewhere. I don't know. But the COE will have the link up. Anyway, this next story is incredibly disturbing. I'm warning everyone. I'm going to count to 3 so you can tune it out. 1, 2, 3. Fil and Scott, what I'm about to read, I'd just like to know if this surprises you. A man has been accused of killing a convenience store customer before eating his face in Las Vegas, Nevada. Colin Check, 29, reportedly tackled Kenneth Brown to the ground on Las Vegas Boulevard near Charleston Boulevard before 5 a.m. Sunday. CBS reports that a 7-Eleven employee told police a man, this guy, Kenneth Brown, punched a customer in the parking lot before tackling the man and smashing his head repeatedly on the concrete. About 45 minutes later, police received another call from a witness reporting a man fitting the same description who was now at a bus stop eating this man's face. The person whose face was battered and bruised was missing an eye and an ear. There's nothing to say after this, Scott. Does this story shock you?
Does not. I've had a couple of similar, so that's why my thought would be if you know where bath salts were similar chemical, yeah.
What is going on here, Scott? What would ever? I mean, bath salts are a problem. They were for a while. What was that all about? Do you think this was related to that?
I would think so, especially once you said eating the face of, there were a couple incidents that happened relatively close to each other up and down the East Coast as to bath salt, and laws didn't. It was very hard to prosecute because the way bath salts exist and so forth and are sold, that there's no law, narcotic law, in order to ban it. So governments had to quickly rewrite. But there was an incident in Delaware, and as Phil said, we have lost people we have worked with. There was an officer who suffered a fatal stab wound to the carotid in Delaware, and the individual that ultimately he was fighting with was presumed to have been on bath salts, but he did not think anything of the police officer, and he envisioned in his statement that the police officer was a gargoyle, just this absolute vision that so then what turned out to be just a simple, or should have been a simple, apprehension turned out to be a very, very violent encounter, and it changed just that. And so in knowing that, and then hearing some stories of cannibalism and whatnot, all tied to these bath salt incidents in a relatively close time period, I realized just it is amazing what people will ingest.
How do you swallow bath salts and then you hallucinate, is what you're saying?
I'm not really sure the manner of ingestion, and it's probably like any other drug. There are different manners of ingestion, whether cooking it up, smoking, or whatnot. But it is something, at least when it was happening, that were sold in convenience stores, in these mom and pop shops, that were intended, I'm sure, not to be a narcotic, not to be ingested. And wow, what it does to the brain.
Yeah, is it like Epsom salt? Someone's telling me, look at this. Chelsea says, why are you asking Scott? He hasn't done bath salts, but Scott worked in the FBI. Not that we know of, but is it like Epsom salt? Is that what we're talking about?
Not so much an Epsom salt. They were sold in packets. They were bath salts. They, for whatever, for their intended use. But they quickly became an ingestible drug that did amazing things to people. And then, of course, what those people on bath salts have then done to other people. I knew governments, especially in Delaware, quickly rewrote banning any sale whatsoever. And so it's, I'm not really sure. I don't know what the chemical compound is, but I know ultimately they were these items sold in packets in convenience stores.
Phil, does this shock or surprise you? Are you stunned by this to hear that someone ate someone's eye and ear? I don't know any other way to say it other than that.
No. There have been several face-eating cases around the country, and it just, these guys, it's, you pick those kinds of things. I mean, I know there was a time people were putting embalming fluid on their doobies and smoking that up, and that had a whole different effect on them. Usually when you see stuff like this, I mean, it's going to be something pretty powerful like PCP or, ingesting these bath salts. They can, and they do the same thing with these bath salts that they did with meth. I mean, you can eat it, you can smoke it, you can inject it, you can snort it. I mean, and they'll find a way. I mean, I guess they could, stick it up their rear end and get some sort of effect out of it. But yeah, it's bad stuff. I mean, this, and it was packaged in a way that made it attractive to kids. It was kind of one of these things that, and packaged to be some sort of, I guess what it was supposed to be intended for, throw it in a bath and feel good about yourself, all that kind of thing. So,
yeah. And Cindy and Space Coast mentioning Tide Pods is kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
Not that I'm promoting that, but Jesus. That's a great question, Courtney. How do we get here? Somehow I took Space Birthday and just brought us into the realm of utter morbidity here. But we might as well continue. This is another horrible story. I apologize. The final story is good. This one, though, is... just gets me angry. Scott Duffy, a 31-year-old father, went on trial this week. He's arraigned and being tried for allegedly abusing and killing his 6-year-old son in 2021. The way he did it apparently was by putting him on a treadmill at 6 and speeding it up multiple times, and he had blunt force trauma. I have one question. What the hell is wrong with people? This guy needs to get the death penalty. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, these people are sick. What's the matter with someone that does this, Scott? What is wrong with people?
Yeah, if only we had the anecdote somehow, some way. It's just story after story, and especially it just pulls at any heartstring with regards to an adult against a child, and especially a father against their son. Is just, yeah.
Let's just get through these. What is wrong with you, Joel? It gets worse. Don't worry, and then we'll end with something fun. Maybe I'm just a sadist. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just look for wild stories on Fridays. This is what's out there. I can't help America, man. America is a crazy place. Phil Waters, this is a really sad, very sad when you think about it. I mean, probably the saddest of what I just read, unbelievably. But a 21-year-old woman is now arrested on suspicion of murder for shooting and killing her friend. But the twist to this story is it was an unalive pack. I can't say the other word. They made a pact to unalive each other. They were going to shoot each other at basically the same time. She shot the friend, but then was too scared to shoot herself. She's going to have a very difficult time the rest of her life.
And what do you want me to comment on? What level of stupidity these people rose to?
You know what? Let's not even comment. Let's move along here. This one is actually a Florida story and made me chuckle. A 20-year-old man is now behind bars, charged with launching a fried chicken fuselage. Is that a word? At his sister during a domestic clash in Florida. The poultry pelting occurred Sunday afternoon in the Clearwater home of Kanye Medley. During a verbal altercation, he grabbed a bag of Church's chicken from his sister and began throwing pieces of chicken at her. One piece of fried chicken, Scott Duffy, hit the victim in the back and left debris of food on her shoulders. They called the police, and he was arrested for domestic battery. Scott Duffy, does this surprise you? Flinging chicken at people, ending up in this sort of predicament. Now, police are called, and because they literally winged a chicken wing at his sister's back, he was arrested. Your thoughts? Does it surprise you that people get so angry that they would wing a chicken wing?
I would say that has to rise to a pretty high level because, that's a damn good chicken. Was it a rotisserie chicken? I mean, I think I've heard Church's chicken is pretty good.
Yeah.
I would not waste it. Maybe after eating it, then you can chuck the bones.
Lindsay says, what a waste of chicken. Peony Pink says, I feel sorry for the chicken. Good thing the bath salt's messing around from Daddy Short Nuts. Analytical Blarney calling me what the COE does when she's not mad at me. Joelle. All right, last story.
I've got a chicken story.
Oh, please share. Please.
So we get a call about a body laying in a parking lot of an apartment complex. And we get there, and there are 5 of these Cuban guys in this one apartment. One of them is dead in the parking lot. The one who made him dead has run away. And the 3 that are there explain that one of the guys, I guess the guy that ended up killing this guy, had a great recipe, some Cuban cuisine recipe for how to prepare chicken. And there was this one lone drumstick sitting in the pan. And the guy that is dead wanted the drumstick. And the guy that made him dead, he wanted the drumstick.
Sort of logical.
So this became a battle for the drumstick. So they went outside in the parking lot to have some fisticuffs to see who would win the drumstick. And the guy that is dead, he's a little bit bigger than the guy that made him dead. So when they began the battle of the drumstick, the guy that's dead was really beating the crap out of him. Now, he wasn't using the drumstick, but he was battling for the drumstick. And the guy that wants the drumstick realized when he went out there that this guy's bigger than him and he's probably going to win this fight with fists. So he brought with him a steak knife, which he hid upon his person. And when he began to lose the fight, he then produced the steak knife and stabbed this guy one time, juked him one time. That's all it took. And boom, he fell out in the parking lot and expired. While we were at the scene, there came a torrential downpour. So everybody jumped into their cars, and of course, this guy's out there in the middle of the parking lot with this torrential downpour coming. And after it was over with, the suspect returned to the scene and turned himself in. He explained the battle of the drumstick and what had happened. So we had to bag the drumstick as evidence in this murder. And I think when they interviewed me for the soundbite, my comment was, "You can't script this stuff."
Although I just wrote a line for, I should be a writer for Dateline. Let me do my Keith Morrison on this. Here it is. It was a deadly game of chicken. That was it. Are you guys doubled over laughing on top of each other at this scene? I mean, how can you? I mean, I know there's a dead person.
I mean, it was everybody. Well, everybody told the truth. That's what was great about it. Everybody acknowledged what it was all about, and then you almost, when you start hearing it, you don't believe it at first. You're kind of like, really? And then you go upstairs into the apartment, and there it is. There's the evidence. There's the drumstick. The one, they had done this whole chicken in this wonderful Cuban. In fact, I was a little hungry when I kind of wanted, I wanted to see, really what is it about this particular recipe that would cause someone to kill over it.
Did you try it?
No. I didn't want to destroy the evidence. That would be tampering. I didn't want to do that. So, but we did. It smelled wonderful. I don't know what kind of spices they used, but it smelled wonderful. Of course, after we were through, we then immediately went and ate, had something to eat. So,
I really, the places we go in this show, I from one week to the next, I say to myself, there's no way we can go to weirder places, but we do. Abby Tahaha adding to all of this. I have no idea why she has this in here, but mermaids wear seashells because B shells are too small and D shells are too big. I guess that's, I think someone wanted a joke. Maybe that's what. How can food be evidence? Doesn't it deteriorate? Here's a logical question. They put it in a Ziploc bag in the fridge, right, Phil?
Yeah, it's preserved. It's preserved.
Joel's Keith Morrison imitation sounds like an obscene phone caller. It was a deadly game of chicken, or was it? All right, final story here today, and it will be a beautiful one. I promised you uplifting at the end. This one actually just blows my mind, made me almost tear up. An orangutan named Racus hit a rough patch in the summer of 2022. They heard a fight between male orangutans in the treetops of a rainforest in Sumatra, Indonesia. A day later, they spotted Racus. It's Rakus. He had a pink wound. If anyone's seen this photo, this is a very touching photo. He got in a fight with another orangutan, and he has literally like a little chunk of skin that's just ripped off his face right here. And he looks sad, and it's depressing. And what did you guys hear about this story, Fil and Scott? No?
Oh. No, missed this one.
Yeah, you missed this one. So this is the first reported case ever of an animal that was working to cure his own wound. He took a plant, the leaves of a particular liana plant, and took the liquid and took the serum from the plant and made it as a Band-Aid to heal his wound. And researchers were absolutely, he made a paste from the chewed leaves. He chewed up the leaves and applied it to his face. It is the first time an animal has ever been seen applying medicine to a skin wound. He feeds on something called Fibrarura tinctoria leaves, and he was able to, as I said, mash it up, get the gel, like an aloe vera gel, similar to that, and applied it to his face, and it healed his wound. He self-medicated, the first animal in the wild ever to do so. Phil Waters, your reaction to this story. I mean, I believe that this is proof that there is a higher being out there, that this is an unbelievable world. For all the ills of mankind and womankind, orangutans keep us having the faith.
Well, I don't need an orangutan applying something to his busted eye to understand that there is a creator. But and this is the first recorded event like this. I don't think he's the first orangutan to ever do this.
First they've ever seen.
Obviously, there's something about these orangutans. They know that this is something they can do to apply something to where they have an injury. So I just think it's another example of what a remarkable world that God created.
Very well said. Someone's telling me, I guess this is the inside. Is this the inside of a plant of pool tease? I don't know. Scott Duffy. Have you ever seen Pearl apply medication to a wound on her paw or on her leg? Have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't.
You've not. One of my, I think I've mentioned this on the show, one of my longest childhood, I guess you would say, fantasies or dreams was to one day own a chimpanzee. You can ask my mother, told her that at the age of 6 or 7. I always wanted a chimpanzee. Scott Duffy, if an orangutan wouldn't rip your body in two and eat your face, would you ever have one as a pet? If you could have him completely tamed and trained, let's just say it was completely trained, no possibility of injury, would you allow an orangutan that would self-medicate into your home?
No.
I would. Why not? Why would you not? I would love one. Imagine like just laying down for a nap and
you've been watching Every Which Way But Loose too much.
Yeah. Phil Waters, you too, you would if you could have a guarantee that this orangutan would not rip your arm out of your shoulder socket, that he was completely fine, and that he would not fling poop as analytical Blarney, you wouldn't have an orangutan in your home, Phil? Or at least
there's no such guarantee.
What if I guarantee, even in Hawaii, you wouldn't have him running around swinging from tree to tree?
There's no such guarantee.
Anyway, that's kind of leaving me on a bitter and sour note, because I really do dream of one day having a chimpanzee. Imagine.
Yeah, we'll be reading about you where the chimpanzee is eating your face. So there you go.
Imagine it just
will rip your face off.
Imagine Carm is so stressed out already about this book tour that it's going to end our relationship. Imagine if I showed up, Scott Duffy, on the first leg with Frank the orangutan with a baseball cap on backwards, a Knicks jersey on, just ready to go. And Carm's like, "What is that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's my pet orangutan." I don't think it'd go over well. You know where it would go over well, Scott? At the Phillies game we're going to go to. They would love it. The Phillies fans would love it. Oh, look at this. Marcy has to rain on my parade. Orangutans can be mean. Wow, this has been a long day. Would you have a monkey at the dinner table, like to eat? Never in a million years. Sitting there eating with me? Yes. Maybe he would train Fred to not beg for food, but that jig is up, I guess. I don't know. Phil Waters, you're rubbing your eyes. I'm beyond tired. I'm delirious. I told you it'd be a weird show, and it is. Your final thoughts on this Friday, Phil? Yes, your final thoughts. By the way, Philadelphia's shoulder surgeon is in Miami. She reached out. She's here for a conference. Great question. I have to reach out to her. Phil, leave us with something uplifting, please. They're both rubbing their faces.
Scott, I'm very rarely ever speechless, but this may be one of these moments. I don't know how you follow any of this stuff. And Joel's, obsession with wanting to own a chimp.
Dying to have a chimp.
That's very strange. No, I just would encourage folks to understand and realize the risks that are taken every day when a police officer walks out of that door and leaves his family behind, that most of these officers, like me, this is a calling for them to do this job. And people need to appreciate the fact that they are willing, as the Bible says, to give their life for somebody else. There's no greater sacrifice. They're willing to put themselves in harm's way to protect people that would like to see them destroyed, by the way. So they're the guys that run to the gunfire, not away from it. And if those people that hate police officers for whatever reason, I would just say the next time that you're in a bind, then try calling a crackhead and see what kind of response you get. But I hope that everybody has a joyful weekend. And down here in the Houston area, staying dry, and just have a great rest of the day, because it's another beautiful day in the neighborhood.
It is. And Phil's going to his neighborhood on the Big Island. I gotta be honest, I don't think I would have the courage. I know this is hard for many people to believe, to be running into the gunfire, but Fil and Scott took that oath and lived that life. So respect on their name. I would get a chimp knowing that it's possible he would rip my arm out of my socket. Space Coast, Joel, train your monkey to co-host. Scott Duffy, please leave us with something lighthearted, please.
Well, we went from people eating faces of other people.
Yeah, we didn't start
to
there.
Orangutans being at our supper table.
Fixing his face. Fixing his face.
This is a really weird show, I think. I never realized it.
Why do we say that after every show now here lately?
I'll say this. There's no other true crime show like this one. I can guarantee you that. But Scott Duffy, does your wife, when you said she watches or listens, does she ever call you and say, what the hell is wrong with that Joel guy? Does she say that? She's going to this week. Maybe I'm just a weird dude. I don't know.
We keep coming back to you. We keep coming back.
I love
it. Just it's Friday, and it's a beautiful day here in Philadelphia and the surrounding suburbs. So all prayers and good wishes to all those who are working right through the night.
Scott Duffy, promised me one thing. I will be in Philadelphia, as you see, May 23rd. I just don't want it to all end for me there. And I'm going to a Phillies game, and you guys are crazy in that city. And I mean that with love, but there's a 50-50 chance you don't come out of a Phillies or a Eagles game alive. So please just protect me at the game is what I'm asking.
Yeah. Just don't wear anything that's not Phillies. You can wear, absolutely a neutral. Wear what you got on now. How's that?
Can I wear Can I wear a Surviving the Survivor hat, or will they beat me up?
Sure. Anything that has nothing to do with another team, you'll be all right.
Scott, if we're there, if we're at the game and you get noticed from being on Surviving the Survivor, will you buy me a beer for that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I love it. If it's not your wife. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's the show. I have nothing else to add. Monday, on a serious note, is Holocaust Remembrance Day. We're going to be doing a show that night. Carmen and I are kicking off the book tour. Wish us luck. Hopefully our relationship will last through the next 2 weeks. It is touch and go as we speak. Have the best weekend, STS fam. You too, Abby Crossing. Great to see you. Love you, America. Stay safe this weekend. Don't do anything silly.